Awakening in the dawn of light, silence fades away. Cocooned, we walk out to a cliff by the sea. Gulls soar to lofty heights. All that we are has taught reverence for the truth, the virtue of light. We aspire to gain the lofty heights. Then, not all at once, we change. The lofty heights are no more. Science is not in heaven. It is all around us.
Hi everybody, my name is Dana O'Connor from KUNR, our public radio station here at the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm here on behalf of the Northern Nevada Science Coalition. My guest today is Dr. Stephen E. Schwaretz. He's a senior scientist and group leader at the Brookhaven National Laboratory. Steve, welcome to Reno.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Steve, first of all, I'm not a scientist, just generally interested in science and topics of that nature. Can you tell me about what your work is and why it's so important to us?
I'd be happy to. I work, as you said, in the Atmospheric Sciences Division at Brookhaven National Laboratory. And Brookhaven National Laboratory is a Department of Energy laboratory. So our major sponsor is the Department of Energy, which is a cabinet office in the federal government. And you and all the other American citizens help pay for my salary and for the research that we do. And the Department of Energy is charged with seeing to it that the nation will have its energy throughout this 21st century, that there's electricity when we turn on the light switch, that there is fuel for our vehicles, that we have the energy that it needs to heat our homes, to cool our homes, to make goods, to move things from here to there, to move people from here to there. All of that takes energy. And part of the responsibility of the Department of Energy is to see to it that not only do we have the energy, but the energy to characterize, to make known what is the environmental consequence of energy development and use. And then the other side of that coin is, are there constraints that might be placed on our energy economy, on our ability as a nation to meet our energy needs that might be imposed by environmental considerations? And in particular, these days, everybody thinks about climate change, and what are the considerations of climate change that might limit our ability to meet our energy needs in the future. So the Department of Energy is charged with conducting that research, and we at Brookhaven National Laboratory are some of the people who are carrying that research out.
Now, your lecture today is entitled Climate Change and Energy Use in Today's World, Chilling Considerations Regarding Global Warming. What's the most important message you want people to know about energy use and climate change?
Well, I think the strong connection is probably the most important part of the message. I'm a chemist, so my highest degree is in chemistry. There's a law of chemistry, the law of conservation of matter. And I like to say in a lecture, that's a law that even the Congress of the United States can't repeal. and the message is that if you burn fossil fuel, carbon-containing fuel, that to get the energy out, that as a consequence of that, the carbon that was originally in the form of petroleum or gasoline or natural gas or coal, that carbon gets burnt to carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide comes out the smokestack or the tailpipe. One way or another, that carbon is conserved and it goes into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. It is one atmosphere for carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide molecule that's put into the atmosphere in the United States is equivalent to one which is put into the atmosphere in China or one which is put into the atmosphere anywhere else in the world, because the residence time of these molecules in the atmosphere is so long that they get well mixed and it really doesn't matter where they come from.
I see.
And under those circumstances, then, every time we are using fossil fuels, we're increasing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, CO2, and this material will stay in the atmosphere for quite some period of time. Oftentimes when I'm talking to school groups, I'll say to the children, well, how many of you children have grandchildren? And they look at me like they're uncomfortable. Did I misspeak? And then I can say, well, how many of you have, they don't like the question, but how many of you have grandparents? Oh, they're much happier with that question. They're comfortable with that question. And I'll go on and I'll say, well, your grandparents are pretty old, aren't they? And yes, we have family groups that come to Brookhaven National Laboratory. Sometimes they'll say, well, I don't want to say because my grandfather's standing in back or something, things like that. But we have fun with it. So, okay, but here's the message that I'm trying to convey to the children, but even more so, I think, to the parents who are standing behind them. It was, okay, suppose I say to the children, you grow up and you have children. Okay, those are your children, right? Most children understand that concept. They get it. Okay, now suppose they grow up and they have children. Well, those will be your grandchildren, right? And children understand that pretty much. And then I say again to the children, I say, this is hard. Try to imagine your grandchildren as old as your grandparents are now. And that's very difficult for children. I'm a grandfather, and I have a granddaughter, two granddaughters, two grandsons. It's hard for me to imagine them as old as I am now, and with grandchildren of their own even. Okay, but the message now for the children and their parents behind them is well, that carbon that you put in the atmosphere on the way, say, to Brookhaven National Laboratory today, half of that carbon will still be in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide when your grandchildren are as old as your grandparents are now. I like to put it that way because if I said 100 years, that does sort of, it goes over people's head. But you think, you know, these children's grandchildren, we get the benefit of burning this fuel today to drive our cars, to get us from here to there. So we get the benefit of the motive force that comes from burning this fuel. And we leave the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for these children's grandchildren to worry about. I'm a scientist. I'm a chemist, as I say, by training. I'm familiar with this concept of conservation of matter, and I'm familiar with these issues of how long does this excess carbon dioxide reside in the atmosphere. So I can speak to that. But then it's really a social issue or a societal issue of, is this really fair? And in many ways, we will use this energy constructively to leave a better world for these children's grandchildren as well. If you're using the energy, for example, to build a bridge that can be used for several generations, well, then we've made our contribution to the future. So we can't say it's all negative. We do very positive things. You heat and light a school where children are educated, a university, and benefit comes from that in the people are trained, they learn professions, you're teaching doctors who may save people's lives. It's not all squandering a resource. It's done for good purpose. But on the other hand, not all use of energy is done for good purpose. And so these are, again, societal issues that we have to come to grips with.
What's your advice for young people who want to consider chemistry or atmospheric science?
I guess my first advice is follow your passion. My second advice will be get a good, strong, disciplinary education in a specialty as opposed to becoming a generalist who knows a little bit about a lot of things. Really become an expert in one or two areas and then work with a team that has experts in other areas so that you can put this to the best advantage. That would be my recommendation.
Well, we're out of time, unfortunately. Dr. Schwaretz, thank you very much for coming to Reno, and thank you for this interview. I really enjoyed your company.
Well, I've enjoyed my day here in Reno and certainly enjoyed the interview. Thank you.
You're welcome.